Hi, I'm Ashley, the founder of HealthySexyHungry.com, where I help women love their bodies so they can lose weight and live delicious lives. And I'm here with you on day 7 of my 40 Days of Inspiration Challenge, sharing with you what inspires me today. And today it is chocolate. But it's not just any chocolate, it's raw superfood chocolate. So I'm going to share with you what you're going to need to make it, the ingredients, and then how to make it. Ready? Okay. The first thing you're gonna need is some sort of silicone mold. I've already made my chocolate, so it's in here. You can see it's a little flexy. It's similar to a traditional ice cube tray, but it's a lot easier to get the chocolate out of. So I suggest something silicone and flexy. The other thing that you're gonna need is a double boiler or something to use as a makeshift double boiler. I have a stainless steel little bowl that has handles on it that I got from Bed Bath & Beyond for like 12 bucks or something that I use. You can also use a glass bowl if you have one that'll fit into the pot that you're gonna use. The reason you want a double boiler is because you don't want the surface of your chocolate touching the surface of the pot that is directly touching the flame, because then it will burn. So the way that you make your raw chocolate is you put it in the double boiler on top of boiling water, and the heat from the boiling water is what will melt your ingredients so that you can make your chocolate. So moving on, you're gonna need some ingredients that you might not have, and I ordered these online. It was easier for me. I ordered my superfoods from Superfoods. They were started by David Wolf, who's a raw food advocate. They're a great company. I'm not paid to endorse them, I just really like them. So you're gonna need raw cacao butter. This is probably the one you're gonna have to order if you can't find it locally. Everything else you can probably find locally, but if it's easier for you, you can just order it all online. That's what I did. I ordered my raw cacao powder online and some of my other superfoods like maca. So with that, I'm gonna move on to the 4 necessary ingredients that you need. You can make chocolate with just these 4 ingredients and you don't have to add anything else, but I personally like to add a lot of superfoods to make them superfood raw chocolate. So the 4 necessary ingredients are raw cacao butter. It looks like this. It comes from a cacao pod. You're gonna need raw cacao powder. You're gonna need raw agave nectar. You can experiment with other sweeteners. I've experimented with coconut sugar and honey, and I found that the agaves works best for what I prefer. I have a girlfriend who tried yacon syrup and she said it was great. So feel free to experiment. I personally like agave the best, even though it isn't the best sweetener in the world. And the 4th thing you're gonna need is sea salt. I like the pink Himalayan kind. And everything else is optional. So I'm gonna share what I put in mine. You can pick and choose what you wanna do. In half of my raw chocolates, I put fresh ground peanut butter and almond butter. It's unsweetened and organic, it's from Whole Foods. And then I put in the other half bee pollen and goji berries. So these are my superfoods. And then I also have some other things that I like to add as well. I like cinnamon, turmeric, spirulina, vanilla, and maca powder. So I'm gonna tell you how much of everything you need. 1 cup of the raw cacao butter, a 1/2 cup of the raw cacao, a 1/3 cup of the raw agave, a 1/2 teaspoon of the sea salt, and then everything else is optional. So let's go through how you make it. To start off, you're gonna boil water. You're gonna bring it to a boil and then take it down to a medium heat, so it's still boiling and generating heat, but it's not scorching hot. You're gonna put in your cacao butter. You're gonna let it melt. This will take about 5 minutes. Stir it while it's melting. You will wanna make sure you're watching it, because if it starts to get a little frothy, that means that the heat is too high. So just turn it down a little bit. And So once your cacao butter is melted, you're gonna add in the agave and the sea salt, and you're gonna add in whatever else you wanna add in at that time. I add in my vanilla. This is a vanilla bean pod. You just slice it open and scoop out the vanilla inside. You can also use vanilla extract if you prefer. I put in a couple dashes of turmeric, a couple dashes of cinnamon. I do half a teaspoon of spirulina, and I do 1 tablespoon of maca. It's really good for energizing you, and it's also really good for your libido if you need that. So your cacao butter will have melted when you add in the agave, the sea salt, and any of the other things. You can add in your turmeric, your vanilla, your cinnamon, your spirulina, your maca at this time. You're gonna stir it all really well, and you can use a whisk to make sure it's mixed well. And then you are going to add your raw cacao powder. I like to add it in about a third at a time so that I can whisk it in and it can all dissolve before I add in the next amount. It's just easier for me to stir that way. So when you're adding in the raw cacao powder, you will see that the mixture will start to thicken, and that's good. And at this point, you want to make sure that it's not frothing on the top, like I mentioned for the raw cacao butter. You want to make sure that once you've put the cacao in, that it's not getting bubbly and frothy on top. If it is, you're gonna wanna turn it down. This isn't gonna hurt the chocolate, it's not gonna make it bad. It's just going to give it a little bit of a different color when you pour it in the molds, which is not a big deal. But if you can keep it from frothing, that's the best way to go. And right before I pour my chocolate into the silicone molds, I will put in the almond butter and the peanut butter, the bee pollen, and the goji berries. Once your chocolate is all mixed together, you're gonna take a spoon or a measuring cup. I like to use a little third of a cup, and you're just gonna scoop out your chocolate and drizzle it right on top. I have these 2 silicone molds, and the recipe fills both of these. There's a total of 30 little molds that I can pour this recipe into. So if that helps you figure out what sort of yield this recipe will make, there you go. And so once everything is all poured and ready, you're gonna put it in the freezer. You're gonna wanna make sure to put it on a flat surface, because if you don't, the chocolate will run off and get stuck all over your freezer. So if you don't have a flat surface in your freezer like me, because you have too much stuff in there, stick a cookie sheet or some sort of flat pan in there that you can lay them on top of. You're gonna leave your raw chocolates in the freezer for about 30 minutes, and then you're just gonna stick your finger in there and make sure that it's hard to the touch, and then you know that they're done. And when you're ready to eat them, you can just pop them out, let them sit for a minute or 2, and they will be perfectly delicious and ready to eat. And the important thing to remember about raw chocolates is that they need to be kept in the freezer or the fridge because of the cacao butter. If they're kept at room temperature, they will melt. One more thing to keep in mind, the active ingredients in the cacao and some of the other superfoods can be quite strong. So if you have a sensitive system, you might want to just have 1 piece at a time to see how it makes you feel. I know the first time I had it, I was like totally zinged and felt amazing. I don't have more than 3 pieces at a time, and if it's near bedtime, I only have 1 or 2 because otherwise I won't be able to sleep. But for me, raw chocolate is something that is great to have in the morning after my protein smoothie because it does help energize me. So that's something to keep in mind. And I hope that you enjoy your raw chocolate. Your inspired action for today is to experiment with superfoods, whether it's making my raw chocolate recipe or experimenting putting some turmeric on some rice or putting some bee pollen in your smoothie or sticking some spirulina in your chocolate. Whatever it is you want to do, experiment with 1 new superfood this week. And then next week, experiment with another one. And then gradually you will have more of an adventurous palate and you'll be more open-minded to trying more and more superfoods. So thanks so much for sticking around to watch this video. If you are on Facebook and you like it, please like it and share it with your friends. And if you want to follow along with the challenge on YouTube, you can find me at Healthy, Sexy, Hungry. Thanks so much and have a beautiful day. I'll be back tomorrow with more. Bye-bye.